You see this as
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
this seems like it's going to be a definite style change, which I love.
Yeah, I
I'm
think so.
I'm glad, and I do have concerns which I'll share later. Not about this, but
Right.
about
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the executive committee meeting or the steering committee, executive committee. I like steering committee better.
Steering's fine. Yeah, whatever.
Steering committee of the GrowthOD group. It is Tom, Olivia, and Ken. We invited David. I don't think he's going to be able to make it. Invited Joy um, because we're going to invite her to join the steering committee. I don't know if she is going to, I haven't heard back from her. I don't know if she's going to be able to come. I expect she'll say yes. She's been a real active participant and she's perfectly suited for what we're doing. It is January 6th, 2026, 6 p.m. So we're going to record this just for posterity and whatnot. So what you're looking at there is um, a weekly artifact that we used about 5 years ago. Olivia and I were in a true storytelling circle, which we named, I think, because of your nomination, was the Heaven on Earth Story Weavers.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in the middle or at the start of COVID, and we were a bunch of us that didn't know each other, except that we were all in somewhat of an orbit around David Boji and Grace Ann and their circle of energy workers and storytellers and good-hearted people, and we were responding to the new book that he had written with Jim Seibel and Jens Larson and um, Lena um, and Grace Ann on true storytelling, which was it was a particular approach to storytelling that had not been seen in the world before, which incorporated the Danish European protreptic style of coaching, which is an
Mm.
Aristotelian style of coaching, in which it is a form of dialogue not quite the same as Socratic questioning and dialogue, because Socratic had a very particular purpose in mind and a direction that Socrates wanted to take you. But it was in the spirit of Aristotle and the coaching that he provided to the philosopher kings of Athens. It was a way to use dialogue to
Mm.
assist the philosopher king in exploring the issue that he had on his mind and that he didn't have anybody that he could trust that he could talk to. And the idea was that by being a non-binding, non-directional, non-authoritative, non-judgmental illumination exercise, that the coach could ask surprising questions about the topic that the philosopher king wanted to discuss, and then the philosopher king would go inside their own experience and check their emotional reaction as a matter of surprise. The idea being that the surprising questions would cause them to react in a certain way without planning, and that from that spontaneous flash of insight, that first knee-jerk reaction, that he would get right to the what Aristotle called the intuitive understanding, which was a he defined as a embodied pre-reflection knowledge.
Mm.
And so, in other words, it was embodied in the sense that it was part of your living person and it was pre-judgmental. So, this was your walking around state of nature without any prior planning and preconditions. It was you in your most basic central identity reacting to things that would happen in the world. And the idea is that the ideal of Socratic reasoning and reflection was you would then examine these ideas in a philosophical critical stance to think twice and decide once, to look at it from many different perspectives. And the role of the protreptic coach, that's the Greek word for that, it would be to simply assist the philosopher king explore those ideas that he had put on the table. So he didn't have any particular place he was trying to go. He wasn't trying to teach him anything. He was simply there to assist the subject with exploring their own internal understanding of things and trusting that person to be an expert in their own story and to decide when enough was enough. And then, having been exposed to new ideas from these surprising different directions that were triggered by the Socratic questioning, then the philosopher king could go off to their reflective space and think about what it meant and what else they should consider. So it was the second loop of learning, or the double loop of the reflective judgment. So that was
Mm.
so that is a very strong connection to the Greek philosophical stance.
Mm.
Um, well, that was what Jens Larsen and the Danes brought with them, because their mentor Ole Fogh Kirkeby had brought protreptic forward from the time of Aristotle in his book and his life work called the um, Modern Protreptic, or the Protreptic for the Modern Times.
Mm.
Well, what David and Grace Ann brought with them was the David Bogie Grace Ann Rosiel style of true storytelling, which is values based and from the heart, strongly anchored in the individual and freedom and trust and truth and indigenous ways of knowing, which are quite often ways to speak truth to power. The opposite of top down corporate grand narrative and um, directed received wisdom. It's very much an individualistic stance. It starts with stories on the inside from your lived experience. So, in that
Mm.
sense, the source of the indigenous ways of knowing, those true stories are coming from the same place that Aristotle described as the embodied, pre reflective understanding of the world. And so, when
Mm.
those two things came together, they came out with the book True Storytelling, which, as we know, has these seven principles. If I could find my little button here. Yeah, so the seven true story principles that we're familiar with, that, and then uh, so then back in 2020 and 2021, 20 or 30 of us were meeting weekly during COVID and going through an experience of true storytelling in the world, working together. I ended up becoming the moderator of it and the administrator of it, and so I'm kind of rules based. And after we monkeyed around for a couple months trying to find our own sense of identity and the ways that we agreed to be together, it all kind of came together, and Olivia nominated the name as the Heaven on Earth Story Weavers. And we were thinking about how to normalize that, how to standardize it. What was our group culture? And we settled on the word agreements with the help of Mike Three Bears.
Mm.
We at first were thinking about rules, and we didn't think that fit because rules were concerned with external authority telling you what you have to do. And you could be free to violate a rule and face consequences, but we didn't think that really aligned with the non-judgmental element of true storytelling, which is an individual inner space kind of a thing. And we didn't want to say this was our recommendation or advice or guidance, because that's something that you could decide not to do and it would be okay. And we didn't think it would be okay for people not to sort of abide by what we decided should be called agreements. And so the name agreements came about. And in the gray space you see there, we described the True Story Circle as a sacred story space. My own modest contribution to this was the idea that uh, if you want to tell the truth, the the precondition is that you have to trust each other to be able to express that truth, because we've all lived in the world long enough to know what happens to um, truth tellers in the wrong circumstances. Quite often, the tallest nail will get the hammer. And so, life in the real world, which is concerned with power and imbalance and exploitation, doesn't always want to hear the truth. And so there are consequences. And so we learn socialized behavior to start shading the truth or lying or withholding the truth. So for the truth to come out, we thought the precondition of that was I had to be able to trust people. And in order for me to trust people in the space we were in, that the precondition of trust was safety. That, and then the argument was that, or the hypothesis, I should say, is that if you could create a safe space that we all agreed to abide by these agreements, then you could learn to trust each other. And from that trust, you could take the risk of telling the truth in public, encouraged by the fact that people were not there to judge you, but were simply there to listen carefully and accept the gift of your truth and let your truth resonate inside them in order to spontaneously feel what it's like. And we noticed that when you had safety, then trust, and then truth, and naturally emerges in the form of personal stories, that quite often opportunities to do things to make the world a better place just seem to naturally happen. That when people of goodwill that were united by a common set of values about empowering other people and doing good in the world that the people may thrive, that there was a natural set of opportunities that whatever. So this whole idea of safety, trust, truth, and opportunity
Mm.
sort of became the natural culture around which we created this sacred story space. And what we said was that these were the voluntary agreements that we swore to abide by. That if we all lived up to those agreements, then it was possible to have a safe, trusted space where you could tell the truth. And so it's not binding on a person. A person could decide not to follow those agreements, but if a person were not to follow that an agreement, like becoming judgmental or telling somebody else's story, then all that meant was that you no longer had a sacred story space, and true storytelling was not happening because the preconditions were not there. So the idea of agreement then sort of had a voluntary self-binding contribution to the possibility of a collaborative group space. So what emerged from this was about a little over 3 years. We we settled on these agreements and then lived up to them for almost 3 years. That we were going to be in that circle and listen with an open heart, respect confidentiality, meaning we were not going to record things. We were going to not pass judgment or sit in judgment on others, but we were actually going to strive to not judge, to empty our bowl into our story, creating a open space in which we could receive the truth of other people's stories, not in order to wait for our turn to talk or to judge them or offer them advice or recommendations, but simply to spend 1 hour together without judging each other and just be in the truth to see what that felt like. And that really motivated that group for 3 years.
Hmm.
And so our standard practice was something like this: that we would come to that circle, and you see the little note for a foyer, that we'd have just a quick um, welcome aboard, what's going on, and then hit a little chime, and then that would signal that we had entered the sacred story space. And then we spent about 1 to 2 minutes per person simply telling their true story about that week's topic and the way it had impacted their life and how they understood what it meant until everybody had had a chance to speak their truth. And then we would hit a chime, and then that would allow us to move into the foyer. And then after we had left the sacred story space, we ended up, I think in the first year, we sort of then just said our farewells and went about our ways. After about a year, year and a half, we ended up liking each other so much, and there were things that we wanted to do together that we decided that there was a chance to stay longer. And then I'm showing this as the opportunity phase where we might actually work together on something. So now we're into normal collaboration. We are listening and adding our stories and using some judgment and having regular collaboration. So we were near the sacred story space, but we were not in the sacred space where only the truth was to emerge. And we learned that we could withhold judgment and withhold the need to give advice and just wait for the sacred phase to be over. And then we could work on things in a workshop. If somebody was going to show how they did things, we could do a workshop with them. Or we could just teach each other about the tools we used, or we could, whatever we wanted to do. And there were a number of collaborations that happened after the sacred story space, later in the week or whatever. Now, what I want to say is that in the middle, you'll notice there's a story seed working lists. In that particular um,
Hey, Ken, can you wait
history,
a second?
yeah.
Our neighbor's dog was here and he's just picking him up, and I don't want Tom to miss this. So
Oh,
sorry.
okay, okay,
If you want to pause the recording or
yeah. Let me find where that is. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's oh, that was the pausing the screen share. I think I gotta hit the. You see. Now, one of the things that our standard practice for that group turned out to be that we would have a topic for the week that we knew ahead of time. And the idea was that leading up to that session, we had been thinking about that story seed all week. I've shown that on this particular version, the story seed for that day would have been art. And then the week after would have been resonance, then non-attachment, then protection and heaven. And in fact, what we had a working list of nominated topics that each week we would just advance at one. And then, so if we were running that circle today, it would be, I'd have been thinking about what art meant to me and how it really impacted my life. And I would try to tell the best true story about art and what I thought it meant in my life in the form of a story where art was an important part of my experience. And the phenomenon was that if you spend all week thinking about art and how it connects to your life with stories, you actually think that you know something about art and what it means to you. And so I would bring that story to the circle, and there'd be 10 or 20 of us in there, and we would empty our bowl because everything you were thinking about art was now in your story ready to go. And you're sitting there as an empty vessel, relaxed. And then Olivia would start telling a story from her life about what art meant to her. And it would just blow me away because I never saw that coming. And I could feel that story resonating in me and generating memories that I'd forgotten. And now suddenly, this thing that I thought I knew about art was completely multidimensional because of, and then each person would tell these stories. So you were getting flooded with all these new, amazing, explosive insights that would catch you by surprise. And then it would be your turn to tell the story. And it's like, well, here's my story. It was true to me, but I've got all this other stuff that's just there fully enriching my life. And so the energizing effect of that was amazing. And our job was simply to experience that. And then when it was time to leave the sacred space and go, you had all week to be able to process that. So we weren't trying to talk over each other and, oh, here's what art means. No, it was just really a chance to see the concept of art in its multidimensionality and to genuinely realize how important it was for us to experience the different perspectives of other people and listening carefully to their stories, not waiting for our turn to talk, but really to be open to that direct experiential uh, moment in which you have bypassed your reasoning and thinking and your planning and all that stuff. You were just there really to receive gifts. So this became really, really powerful. Um,
Mhm.
so that's the reason so what I want to say about that is around that particular form of true storytelling, we came up with these agreements and these notes and a set of procedures about how we would process that as a weekly, almost a ritual, I would say. It's really a ritual in that sense that we would use the talking stick so that only one person was talking, and they talked until they relinquished the stick and said "aho," meaning so be it, and pass the stick to somebody else. And we would put a 20-second pause in between the stories simply to acknowledge and respect that transition and to give that story, almost like a baby deer, time to find its legs and go out into the universe. My sensation was always that when a group of people get together and propose to tell the truth and listen without judgment, the universe hears that and comes to listen because it wants to experience that too. And I always felt this presence of a great listening ear that would take our true stories and immediately sprinkle that throughout the universe, immediately and everywhere, spreading that goodness and love and energy. I always felt that.
Can I
Well,
share a quick
yeah,
story?
yeah, please.
So when David reached out to me, I had just retired as a 35-year data scientist, and I
Right.
had never really spoken in front of a group without preparing. And I thought, well, this is going to be a really good exercise for me to show up and not pre-plan what I'm saying. And it was, as you described, it was just such a beautiful container to feel safe and be able to speak from my heart. So I had thought about the topic, but I didn't plan what I was going to say. And then I got to experience and actually get more comfortable with speaking my truth about something that was an experience but had content, and have it received. The part about not being judged, not being analyzed, not getting advice, just have it land. The 20 seconds is such a beautiful space. So I really am excited to take.
Yeah, that was, I had that exactly the same thing. I mean, I'd been a 25-year career Army officer and a 20-year Army civilian professor. So for 45 years, I've been immersed in a very strong, hierarchical, professional, controlling, rational planning environment
Yeah.
where every word and is measured in the sequence. So it was a very freeing experience for me to be able to trust the people that I could just tell my stories to. And it was, well, I found it to be revolutionary and transformative.
Yes.
Well, that ended up um, lasting all the way through COVID. There was a time when after COVID was over, we were down the final maybe hardcore, if I could say it that way, 8 or 10 of us would get together, and then one of the things that we noticed was that it felt like it was time to let that rest for a
Mhm.
while,
Well,
and
my
uh,
son
and
got
and it
sick
was
too,
also,
so yeah.
yeah, and it
It,
was also
it,
the timing. In COVID it was kind of easy to make time during
mhm.
the day and all that because life had sort of gone on pause, and so it was not always convenient to do that. But there was it was time to kind of move on, and David was ill, and so we gently put it back on the shelf and thought about it. Well, this brings me to where we are now. I'm not necessarily proposing that this is what we do, but my what I was thinking about with my proposal was that um, instead of these individual story seeds, my thought was in the GrowthOD community that we could do something like uh, I still like the safety, trust, truth, and opportunity. I'm thinking as a straw man or a steel man is if our check-ins were featured the gratitude experience, before we just have 15 seconds of happy talk and one fun thing. To me, starting off with a 15-second gratitude would reinforce that pillar and allow us to set the tone for uh, what I am calling a work in progress. Now, what I started to do on Saturdays with my clients and my military officers was follow almost exactly this heaven on earth story weavers, but instead of these um, weekly topics, we we used a standing topic of my work in progress, and our idea was that, and we're still doing that on Saturday mornings, by the way.
I know you
Is
mentioned,
that and so
yeah,
that's
it's been
I'm
so
in the
early.
I'm in the sixth year of doing that, and we
Wow.
haven't missed a Saturday.
Wow.
And so what we do on that one is instead of having talking about art or resonance, whatever, each one of us has sort of the thing that's most important to me that I'm trying to just work on, whatever that is, the thing that's got my attention this week that I'm putting my heart and soul into. I just come in and tell my true story about where I am. If it was a win, it was a win. If I am needing help, I acknowledge that I need help on it. I'm not going to get the help immediately
Mhm.
until we get out of the sacred space, but it's just putting it on record of here's my situation report and just where I am and how it feels and what I'm trying to do, wins
Mhm.
and whatever it may be. And then we just feel that without the
Right.
need to, well, here's my advice and here's what you should do and getting into the details of planning. But
Mhm.
it's it's similar to the idea in true storytelling where phases one and two, you simply are describing what's there and what's already happened. Uh, and it's later in the stages of true storytelling that you start restorying and trying things on, whatever. But what we're doing on our Saturday mornings in the sacred space is simply reporting on my current work in progress. I thought that this would be a really helpful way as I was thinking about how the Growth OD community um, could continue to grow. Is that when people come in who are connected to Boji or OD or whatever, they're working on things and they have skills, and what they're trying to do is what they could talk about. And
Yeah.
then my thought was also that if we did something like suppose we had a gratitude and then we get in and we tell our 1 to 2 minute stories around the circle of the thing that we're working on and that we've now we've emptied our bowl and that's out there. I then think there's an opportunity to do something like the workshop or the tools where we step out of the story space and then we have, like David did yesterday, a short experiential learning exercise with the facilitator, and he's teaching us how to do something and we try it on and we talk about it. Now, the teaching about things and practicing things and then talking about how it happened is a little bit different than the sacred story space of
Mhm.
listening without judgment. No, we're actually doing some work. So, one of the interesting things I noticed in having facilitated about over 500 of these sessions now over the last 6 or 7 years is that there is sort of a time that true storytelling has this sacred, non judgmental stuff going on in steps one and two. And then, if I can, I'm going to advance the screen here a little bit. Um, when you get into steps 3 through 7, you're actually now starting to you step out of the story space and you start playing with changing the plot, changing the characters, embodying the problem into a character, and then work and then try this story. How does that feel? And what are so helping stories along the way, looking at stage. So now you're doing active work with judgment and collaborating, exchanging ideas. And so it's still part of the true storytelling process, but it has moved out of the sacred space where we simply told and listened to the truth, but we are still committed to doing good work together. And that's actually where you do the good work in the world to make changes. Those are not, it's not always clear what it is that you should do. So you got to be playful and listen and help and speak when it's your turn. So the true story includes that action orientation after you've left the story space where you're now starting to do some judgment. Um, so that's sort of how that happened. That you can see on the right hand side, there were times when we had 40 or 50 things on the working list, and
Hmm.
and what I noticed was in the work in progress style of a circle, a person is they come to that circle always knowing the thing that's on their mind. They're not saying, well, today's or this week's word is this, and I got to find some way to make it fit to me. But what's really on my mind is this other really troubling or exciting thing. So what I've noticed is that when we do the work in progress approach, everybody is always present on the thing that matters the most to them. And now they get a chance to tell the truth, to listen to themselves, tell the truth, and then to experience not being judged. But then there's also an opportunity outside of the sacred space for people to work on that trustworthiness. So those background videos that I talk about in there goes into a little more detail about some of my experiences. Those were things that I've made presentations at the quantum storytelling circle about in the past.
Okay.
Um, I
Did you
what
want to
I've
say
noticed.
something? Or-
No,
Oh,
this
sorry.
is great, Ken. Thank you.
Yeah, so just briefly, the one of the things that I've noticed is that if you look at that as a cylinder where it's moving up the stack there, that you create a safe place and you trust each other. As you start telling the truth and listening to the truth, it's like you're going up that spiral mountain, and from that elevated space, what looked like insurmountable obstacles just begin to diminish. And you can see ways to get around them or to just jump over them and find the opportunities to make transformation, and that the trust and energy that you're getting from the people you're working with becomes part of that social capital that allows us to collaborate and work together. So
So
I,
can I
I
just ask
yeah,
a quick question? Is the sec so after we step out of the sacred story space, does it become kind of like a mastermind or
I
you
think it really works out to be like that because what you
okay.
find is I see this like in about four parts as a just as an example. So if we started, hey, everybody, welcome. Let's do our gratitude check-in.
And I have a
Let's
thought about that too, just if this
yeah,
is a good time or
yeah,
it,
yeah, and
it, okay, go
so that
ahead.
has to kind of go quick. I think
Mhm.
a 10 or 15 10-second thing, so you're quickly in and locked in, and then we here's my work in progress. So we kind of you're almost setting the table like a potluck, and
Mhm.
then there's either a scheduled after the sacred space hit a chime. Now, there could be a scheduled speaker who does like your lesson or my lesson or David's lesson or Jack's lesson, where there's an experiential learning thing. So now I'm in this space that I've now created inside me, having told my story. I have now the energy and I accept this new thing and I get to play with it a little bit. Or it could be something where we just get together and work on a project or something. But that way,
Or
there's
somebody
kind of an
could bring up a
action.
challenge, yeah, like
Exactly.
in the
Exactly.
moment. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are, I think that would allow us to um, reinforce the growth OD spirit of true storytelling principles and
Mhm.
that top level guidance. The idea of the gratitude and love and almost the purview is like is the restoring part of true storytelling is those core competencies of the Boji method are kind of nurtured and supported. I
Hmm.
see this as a practical, I'm imagining this now as the weekly community watering hole or base camp. And then people that are in that circle that have the skills can
Hmm.
have that relationship there. And I would see, for example, like I know Lucero and Vanessa are going to do like monthly meetings and they're part of that circle. So I think that we could act as a that community gathering place with a bulletin board and a calendar to say, hey, these people that are part of this whole process are also doing their own things on these schedules. So you can see how that community of practice
Mm.
is is manifesting in each of their particular forms over the course of a week or the course of the month. So you have our weekly Mondays is that sort of check-in, and we would call it a battle rhythm or that cycle, the weekly cycle on Mondays.
Mhm.
And then Tuesdays is the academic deep dive with David's academic things and all that stuff. Um, Fridays, uh, monthly is a coaching thing that he's going to do with Vuja Day and Lucero and Vanessa and then himself. Um, I think there may be another meeting in there somewhere, like if like if you wanted to do a weekly or twice a month or a monthly, and you had your time and place, all of that would sort of be on the community calendar
Oh, okay.
that we as sort of like the we would operate that as a service to the people as the community bulletin board and a roster of who's who in the zoo and the things that we're working on. So
Hmm.
if you and Tom had a couple projects going on and you were looking to collaborate or things you're trying to do, you'd have your little business card and your little special space. And here's my one pager and here's what I'm trying to do. And Joy and Alicia and the axiology guys, Jack Roddy, and people that are sort of in that community of practice could all find, what their schedules look like. And then the overarching values and principles of true storytelling would
Hmm.
allow us to recognize that we're in the presence of people that we can be safe with and that we trust and that they tell the truth. And then you can find your own path.
Hmm.
And then the what's nice about a Monday morning check-in is sort of like Monday morning is a really good start to the week. I worked on things over the weekend or whatever. I'm starting a new week. I've got my thing. Here's what I'm grateful about. I put out here's my work in progress and what's going on. If I'm really active in that group, I could have my own I could build a course like the three courses that we've built. I think,
Hmm.
would be as part of that sort of community roster. So, like I've got the True Storytelling Foundations course I built for David. I'm going to build an advanced course for him for his the seven B's and the four hearts and all his teachings as one. Yours on love, Tom's on gratitude, one for Joy on her energy work, Alicia's energy work, Vanessa and Lucero's. I've got all the stuff that they did for me. So I see that sort of as just a community course catalog that each person that owns the course sets
Hmm.
the conditions and has a place to put it so that everybody in the community has a place that they can go to see resources and people that we could find and talk to. And now it becomes a community. It's a forum in that, like the
Hmm.
Roman forum, but it has the the Monday meeting then has a very particular flow to it. It has a purpose, an identity, a procedure, established principles, easy to check into, easy to follow along with. To immediate on the first day you get there, you're prepared to talk about your work in progress and learn to trust people and listen to them and become exposed to all these people at very low risk and no
Hmm.
cost. So
I love it.
in that sense, uh, I see us as the steering committee. If we're all in agreement, if Joy I think will say yes. That the four of us we sort of maintain the calendar or the roster of who's the speaker for that week. Like Jack is ready to go with his thing. You've got stuff you can do. Tom's got stuff. Joy has stuff.
Yeah,
I've
I
got
think
stuff.
I'm the next week. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can just keep that kind of monthly schedule very
Mhm.
easily in one prominent place on a website
Yeah.
that has also the personnel roster, the resources, the interesting readings. I will contribute the True Storytelling Foundations course, the Deep
Mhm.
Library, which is about right now is up to about 300 million curated words uh, that collects. I did deep background research on all of the pillars of Glow, and plus a bunch of our recordings. That now it acts as a integrating library research assistant that does
Wow.
some
On Growth
amazing things.
OD. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So
One
so
night
that was it.
research.
My thought that was sort of my in pencil proposal that I just felt it was important to make a definitive statement about purpose, vision, intent, because David is, in my view, a professor emeritus on this thing that he's got his own healing and teaching and learning to do, and he's carried that load. And I know that this. I mean, I watched a group of 30 and 40 strangers carry this off flawlessly for 3.5 years every week, like it was
Mhm.
like falling off a log. It was easy and was really an important part of the COVID response. Uh, you know, the energy of response to COVID, and created, friends that are still with me. And it's something I learned to take out into the world of military officers, my
Mhm.
graduate students, my business clients and friends, and I use it everywhere. So
That's great. Oh,
I wanted
good.
to just offer that and make that as a non-binding suggestion to see what you guys thought about it.
I'm, I love
As
it. I really think I think it'll also hone skills for certain people around this sacred storytelling space that'll be really
yeah,
valuable to people to be able to practice that. And I also feel like people are going to appreciate knowing what's going to happen when they show up. So they'll start
yeah,
to see the value and then they'll look forward to it. And did you want to
yeah,
say anything, Tom? Yeah.
No, I agree with what you're saying, Ken. I really like it. I only, I was in the storytelling maybe after Olivia and I met, so it probably was 2023 around there, and then David got sick and the whole thing stopped. So I only did it
Oh, that's right. He was
three
in
or
the
four
very end
times.
of it.
yeah,
Yeah, if you were
That's
yeah,
right.
there.
And then Brandon got sick and it was really hard to manage any of my time.
But I like
yeah,
the way this is being set up. I like the idea of
Yeah.
the steering committee, and I think Joy will be a huge addition. She's got so
Mhm.
much knowledge.
yeah,
And really skilled. I
And I think storytelling, I love this, and storytelling in the business world, as you guys know, has become a real skill that's
that's like a new
yeah,
thing they've
guys that
discovered.
work for me that
yeah,
say they're certified storytellers, and I'm thinking, what does he know? But anyway, um, it's just, I think, coming to the truth is where we're going, trying to go with the world. So I think we're right on to
Yeah.
something really good. I'm very, very happy to be part of it. Very honored.
yeah. I've been doing a lot of work on storytelling with. I have done some research work with Professor Angus Fletcher from Ohio State as it relates to creativity and the brain's natural biology of using story thinking to create new ideas and opportunities, to store memories, to reason its way out of problems with story. And I'm also experienced in how people will use the power of storytelling to influence others. So there's a whole negative side of
Oh,
storytelling and marketing
NLP,
and rhetoric and NLP. So there's a very, storytelling is sort of being, and I see it being co-opted in business coaching and life coaching and it it can be very manipulative depending on the value structure and purpose and intention and methods of the
yeah.
people engaged in that style. And so, in my view, the what what makes true storytelling and those seven principles stand out so much is simply the fact that it's centered on the truth and
Mhm.
being non-judgmental and non-directive. It's really just it's an energizing and a cleansing and a confidence building and a alliance building, and it's an explosion of potential when you unleash the truth. And
Mhm.
what I've noticed in my own life is I, when I see new people, and I've seen a lot of them because I've been doing it 6 or 7 years. By about the second time they've been through it, people that have never heard of it before but have experienced it twice, they suddenly get it. And once you start listening to the truth and you hear yourself telling the truth and what that feels like, you end up surrendering to the story, as Mike Three Bears would say, and the story tells itself through you. You end up almost surprising yourself as you end up listening to the story that's coming out of you that
Yeah,
that you
exactly.
you hadn't planned and rehearsed it ahead of time, because you realized that when you were sitting and listening to other people tell their stories, that your own internal story morphs to find its best expression in the moment. And so you end
Yeah.
up really being amazed just like everybody else. And there's a very liberating, almost cathartic experience of that when the story takes over. and
Hmm.
and it's very close to what Professor Csikszentmihalyi would call the flow state.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's
I would
also
built my
strongly connected.
confidence.
Yeah, it's and that when you see yourself able to do that, a shy person can now suddenly realizes they have the strength to do this,
Mhm.
that they were not expecting. It's transformational in that sense. And one of the things that makes Joy such a great contributor to this, we're going to try to force her to say yes, is that the centerpiece of her coaching is about finding the confidence to express
Mhm.
oneself in public
Oh,
and
there.
get their story out. And so she was doing true storytelling in a sense without even knowing that it was a thing in the structured Boji method. And once I met her, I was working with her in other in other ways with developing individual businesses and whatnot, and learning to tell your own story, so to speak, for marketing purposes. She was such a wonderful person to work with, and had skills about helping people learn um, to get their story out there, that I knew she'd be a
Mhm.
natural and would really resonate with this. So
Yeah.
what
This is
I would, I don't want to hold you too long, and my wife is flicking the light at me here. Um,
oh,
what I
I
would
do
think is, if we think about it for 24 hours and just to make sure that it
Yeah.
feels correct, I could
have.
draft something up as a sketch for what it is that we propose. The only thing that I would ask us to think about is the management of the Zoom session. Um, I'm comfortable using my own Zoom link for this, because then I have a public business account, so it has unlimited time. I can have
Oh, yeah.
alternate folks, and easy to record, and to
Okay.
process the videos and stuff.
Yeah, it's
That
fine by
would
me.
sort of make it a nice clean break and
That's
get it out of
great.
David's. So I don't want to try to keep having to coordinate with David for his particular link. It would almost be a nice clean break. I'm happy to use uh, the Rizuku site for the courses, and to use the Notebook LM. I have unlimited uh, notebooks, so we can develop that in the future. Happy to do that. I would like to get some help, like with the maintaining the month. I think it's a monthly calendar and list of speakers, and it's actually very easy, by the way, to create a Rizuku course that each week, as we complete a session, that it gets just entered as a line item on a single page, and it's essentially a free website to do the archives, and to
Would
have.
we take the piece out just of the teaching piece?
Well, what I thought was, I think the right way to do it would be just, it would not is not the sacred story space. I think
Right.
that's important to
Not
have the
separate.
respect that that space and that time is for the people that were there.
Yes.
They were the
Yeah.
ones that
And
created
for
that
the
moment, and that
safety.
didn't need to be recorded because it's already indelibly etched in their being.
Yep.
That's where the recording is in your direct experience with that. And then, so I would pick up the recording at the moment where we would move back into the foyer, and
Mhm.
either we're going to go into the workshop or the tools or the challenge or whatever it might be, the person that was doing the teaching. And then those become like a one line entry, and here is a recording on Jack Roddy's coaching method, or Olivia's love at work, or Tom's gratitude exercise, or whatever it may be. And then those become like one sentence um, abstracts that are searchable, and uh, uh, become mini lessons that show people
Yeah.
what it's like. and
Mhm.
and also, truth to be told, it's then very easy for me to take those teachable moments and turn that into new additions into the next Notebook LM library, because now
Great.
all of those things become part of that collaborative collective knowledge base that
Mhm.
is searchable and integrated into the deep library, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of I still have a lot of room in that to add many things.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So
I do have a couple quick
yeah,
questions, and I know you're in a red rush. Um, all right. So I did have some thoughts about it, starting with gratitude, because in another meeting we're in, we end with it, and it actually works beautifully because people are so grateful for what they learned that day and all that. And
almost like
I,
bookends.
yes, well, I would say for the beginning, and I've seen this work really well, and is and it also really makes it tight, is that you say, share your state of being in
Yeah,
3 words or one
inattention.
word. Like you could say excited, stressed, whatever, but people then get a feel for it. You get to express how you're showing
Yeah,
up.
I think, remember, we used to do that with it was like, what was our intention? I'm coming to the circle today with the intention of word, you
Perfect.
know,
Yeah.
or
And
who
then
I'm
end
here to
with,
work for. And
yeah,
then we tell our story about work in progress, and
yeah,
I
then
like
the
that.
gratitude I feel about that. So you almost have the intention, the spot
yeah,
report, and then I think
yeah.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. And we could even end the whole thing with gratitude if people wanted to be grateful for other people's presentations or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
We
because
can
you
think
get a
about
chance
that.
to share the love a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
that,
think
okay.
that's a great idea.
Okay, great. Thank you. I would say no recorders, and I think David had gotten to that
Absolutely
point.
agreed.
Okay, and
Absolutely
then do
100%.
we, so David was really into growing it. Are we really hungry for new members? Is that still the kind of way we're approaching it? Or
For what? For new
new
what?
members, like, do we want to try to stabilize it a bit? I don't know.
What I think is, what we had in our group back in the day, we 20 was about the manageable limit.
Okay, I like
And then
that.
but we also said, uh, bring a friend, not
Hmm.
bring 20 friends, but bring a friend. Hey, if you need to bring 2 friends, bring 2 friends. And then
Hmm.
that becomes
Okay.
sort of, and then when you bring a friend, part of your commitment is to let them know what to expect. Hey, what? Oh, that's okay. I got a 1 page sheet that shows what they can expect, and all you got to do is share that with them, and then you can use, and that way, that 1 page brochure essentially lays out the whole purpose, intention. I'll put in the time schedule and appropriate, references or whatever, so they know exactly what it is that they've signed up to get into, and what we invite them to say when they're at that session. They're under no obligation to speak, but there's a chance for you to talk about your intention, your work in progress, and we'll ask you if there's something that you want to express gratitude about. And that's
Great.
all, and with no compulsion to speak. You just let your heart be your guide on that. And that way, I think we open it up to the people that are on the list already, and sort of
Mhm.
we get about 3 or 4 sessions under our belt. And now you can actually then also say, hey, and here's some sample sessions of what we do. If you think you met somebody that might be interested, there you check it out, and then we can let that thing grow as needed.
Okay.
If it would be a good problem to have if we had more than 30.
Okay.
30 is what social science will show
It's like
is
the
that
sample size.
there is that group size of about 32 is the
Hmm.
maximum that you can kind of have in one little session before it becomes an auditorium.
Okay. Okay,
And that
great.
actually 16 is about the upper limit. You can stretch it to 20. And we know where our teaching groups at the college are 16. And then if we double it to 32, that's the upper limit of what you can actually handle.
Okay.
And if we got beyond 30 people, that's a good problem to have. And what we'd say
Yeah.
is, all right, we'll have a session on Monday and one on Tuesday. Pick a day and and
Okay.
now it sort of clones and becomes, or you just do breakout rooms. But it really, I'd be surprised if it got past 30 in a hurry. But if it does,
Yeah.
we can handle that with
That's a
a,
quality problem, as Vanessa would say. So
yeah,
You-
exactly.
one other, oh, did you?
I was just gonna say, do you see breakout rooms being part of this?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh.
my experience just with the Growth OD group was that depending on the exercise that you want to practice, like if it's something that a skill that you want me to learn and practice, I thought what David did yesterday was really good because you had three people that could, you got some repetition, you got some reps in there, and I met some new people and we had a chance to really talk it through and then do a closure statement. I thought that worked fine. I've also seen one where, keeping it in the larger group, if it's under 10, is manageable.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Once you
I
get
think it
above
depends.
10, it's really you just ought to be in a breakout group anyway. And
Hmm.
and that's a nice if you think about how the structured approach of this would be was I've done a large group intention statement, I've done a large group work in progress statement. I'm ready for a smaller breakout group and some, you know, two or three or maximum four people in a group. So I would sort of encourage the speaker or the teacher for that day to have a plan for breakout groups of four at a time, or if there was 10, to do it in one large group if they thought. So we would just coach people that were taking the lead that day to, hey, what makes more sense for your thing? Is it a large group or smaller breakout?
Yeah.
But I
Depends.
think most of the time the smaller breakout group is going to be helpful,
Hmm.
yeah,
particularly with new people that find it easier to kind of work through in the informal setting. That's been our experience at the military college too, is that breakout groups of three or four,
Hmm.
it's not good with two and it's not good with five.
Okay.
That is either three or four gives you the informal, intimate kind of small group, safe place to negotiate things and talk through what did they mean by that? What are we supposed to be doing? So there's safety and freedom and trust that's built in that little tiny group, and that's
Hmm.
actually a reinforcement of the true story circle. So I
Okay.
my sense would be I would expect 70 to 80% of the time it's appropriate to do small group. Is that would be not
yeah.
surprising.
Okay. I just have one more question, and that is,
Yeah.
are we starting this next week? And is the speaker prepared, or how's that going to work next week?
I was going to suggest that we do the week after, that we sort
Perfect.
of announce what it's going to be Monday. Like I could prepare a much shorter summer. Like I don't have to do the whole pitch that I gave
Well, and
you
then you
guys as
can make
background,
this
but
available if you
and
want.
yeah, and say here's the executive summary of what next week is going to look like and why. The 3-minute elevator speech. Just come and show up; it'll be fun. And then if you got to listen to the evolutionary vision of it
Mhm.
and some of the deeper background, then here's a 30-minute thing where Ken was babbling at length.
Yeah,
And then
you're gonna be the speaker that day, right?
I'm the speaker the following week. I'm happy to do just a little
Okay,
short
good.
thing. So,
Yeah, yeah.
is it like 30 minutes or whatever?
I think 30 minutes is about right.
And
I
I'd
think,
have a breakout or like
yeah,
exercise in there. So it's probably 10 minutes of teaching and the rest is just playing in groups. Okay.
yeah. I think that would be perfect. We make an announcement next week with the resource package. Then you would lead us off on the week after, and
Okay.
then that way Jack can still. Is it Jack next week?
Yeah. And would you
That way
facilitate
he that
next
way he can we can Jack can do the thing that
he
he
was
signed up to
planned?
do, and he's not under any pressure to suddenly
Or
conform to this.
would you be okay facilitating next week, like leading it?
for
Um,
for the for next week.
for Jack, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I should. I I'm gonna 95% say yes. I just have to confirm what's going on at the college. The only trick I ever have with Mondays at 10 o'clock my time is that 8:30 to 10:30 is kind of like prime time teaching for us. I'm not always the prime instructor. Most of the time I can weasel my way around it, but I have to double. I think I can say I'm sure that I am not the prime instructor Monday, so I'll be able to facilitate Jack,
Okay.
and I'm
All
happy
right.
to do that.
Beautiful. Okay. Thanks.
And I'll handle the kind of the executive summary next week, and to give the 5 minute pitch or 3 minute pitch of this and what
Mhm.
next week is going to look like
Okay.
as a preview of coming attractions and the
All right.
direction that we see this going on. And I'll do
Okay.
that kind of. I'm going to draw an ecosystem picture of this, and I will adapt that first page that I had that showed the
Mhm.
agreements of our older group, and I'll just update it for our modern group and put the
Great. That'd be great.
draft agreements inside there. With the
Sounds good.
idea being that we're going to feel it out for a month or 2 months, and
Mhm.
then people won't even notice the difference, and it'll become fait accompli.
Okay. And then after that, you see us maybe taking turns facilitating,
Yeah,
like
I just think
Joy.
there's sort of like with four of us,
Right.
there'll always be at least one of us. You know what I mean?
Okay. And I'll
And
continue to manage the meeting invites. And if you ever wanted to make it later, I'd be happy with that. I don't know if it would be an inconvenience for people, but it's early here, but not that early, I
yeah,
guess.
it's what's that? Is that 8 o'clock for you?
Yeah, that's why I haven't ever made it on Saturday because it's so early,
Oh,
but
oh,
I
yeah, 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 yeah.
thought
Well,
about it.
one of the reasons that it was a bunch of us old guys
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that the later that it went on a Saturday, it was actually harder not to get up early, but because the guys were doing things, and I get soccer
Yeah, oh,
or
that's great.
all day
I will make it
Saturdays.
one of these days. I'm
Yeah,
just
I mean, it's what you would expect. It's kind of like it's gonna look an awful lot like what this is here, uh,
Mm,
but without the instructional piece. It's just
yeah.
the guys talk about their works in progress, and then we usually are kicking around one or two big ideas that came up that somebody's work in progress. We end up saying, "Hey, here's some ideas now about each other's work in progress."
Beautiful.
So,
Yeah, I would love
and
that.
that was that thing has been very helpful and therapeutic for folks that I mean, the works in progress included things like um, stage 4 cancers and loss of a spouse and of a
Mm,
child, and many other the most serious things that we have in life to deal with and it was a comfort just to have a safe place to just say what it was and not to
oh
get
yeah.
advice, just a chance just to a,
Yeah.
a safe, quiet room for an hour with people that care
Beautiful.
about you that aren't going to put no
Yeah.
pressure on you. So
Yeah.
I guess that was everything I had wanted to say. And I
Thank
talked
you.
with David about this sort of already yesterday in the afternoon. He's good. He trusts us to do what we're going to do.
Yeah, I
He's really
texted him.
itching.
He says, Ken has a good plan. So,
Yeah.
so
He needs to do the things he wants to do at 78 and take care of Grace Ann.
yeah.
And this gives it, the idea of changing the Zoom link and a different structure and some of this other stuff and facilitators with it come in with a very clear plan and all that, it
Mhm.
will make it a nice transition to the to the experience. I got to experience that once already, 4 or 5 years ago when said, okay, I'll take on the facilitation and administration of that group,
Mhm.
and that was pretty well received, I guess. Uh,
Oh, great.
so
Yeah.
All right.
Also, I won't change the Zoom link for this next Monday, but I'll wait so that people
right,
will be expecting it.
yeah, I will announce the different Zoom link
Okay.
on Monday. I will announce the new Zoom link for the
And then,
second. Yeah,
great. Then I'll set it up to be the long-term Zoom link. What were you going to
yeah.
say, Tom?
I just have one question, as I'm sitting and looking at my backdrop of GrowthOD, is this a continuation of GrowthOD or is this something different?
This
No,
is
I think this is the GrowthOD True
2.0.
Story Circle.
Yeah.
I think it's important to the connectivity and branding is the GrowthOD.
We're only going to be
And
teaching about growth OD topics. That's what's unique about it. Uh,
yeah, I think so. I think, well, like for instance, I would say like Joy has some stuff to teach about,
mhm,
and Jack has something to teach about. Carol
mhm.
might have something to teach about. I have
Carol.
something to teach about. I'm not a formal growth OD pillar,
Mhm,
but I'm under that umbrella. Maybe I am for a true storyteller, but underneath that umbrella, that if you're a person in that community and you have an OD skill,
mhm.
there you go.
Or a
Like,
healing skill like
yeah,
Vanessa
yeah,
or
yeah,
Sarah or
exactly,
Alicia.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like
So,
for instance, like axiology, uh, they're a
yeah.
growth OD pillar. I don't know if we'll ever see them again.
Well, Doug and Monty, they're working a lot with David.
Vujade is a pillar, and
Oh,
we see them
axiology
every
is Peter. Yes, exactly. Sorry, I
yeah.
got it mixed up. Yeah,
Yeah,
Peter does that.
axiology is the thing on the values clarification that comes from Aristotle and those guys.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'll. I only saw them once or twice over the last year,
Oh, yeah.
and so I don't know. So I think growth OD and there's the 5 recognized pillars, and there's a space for them to have their content. It's just a and if they're running their meetings, we'll put them on the monthly calendar.
Yeah.
But the Monday watering hole is a group of us that meet together at the farmers market underneath the overhang there, and you can
Mhm.
set up your own little stall if you're a person that wants to demonstrate your wares. Yeah, there you go. There's a place
And
to
then
do
we
it.
can refer each other, partner, all that for
All
stuff that
yeah,
we were going to do before. Yeah.
yeah,
I like it.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
Good.
Well, I'll let you go as your wife has been clicking the lights you said. So,
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
thank
Well,
Thank
you.
that just
you.
that what that actually means is that she's prepared dinner, and if I want to eat it warm, then I better get my butt up there.
There you go.
All
So,
right.
All
Thank you.
right.
Great.
all right,
This was
guys.
really
Hey, thanks
helpful.
for
Thank you
thanks
so
for taking
much.
the time.
Oh, thank you
All
for
right.
all this. Okay.
Yeah. All
Bye.
righty.
Bye,
We shall
Ken.
see you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.